Alright guys, welcome back to the channel, or welcome to the channel if you're a new subscriber here. We did have quite a few new ones from that last record video, so I appreciate all you guys for joining, and hopefully you guys are enjoying the channel. And yeah, leave me a comment, let me know what you guys think. Make sure you guys like the videos, share them with your friends if you think this stuff's cool. It really helps the channel out, helps me out, helps me get to do this stuff more, so I really appreciate that. This is a small channel, of course, so it doesn't make a large amount of money, but everything helps, and at least paying for some fuel and stuff like that going to the track, especially when I have to travel pretty far to get to these well-prepped tracks. But anyways, today in this video we're going to be talking about the most asked question in the or after I set the record, which was how much does the car weigh? And then we're going to be using that to figure out how much power this thing is making with this little stock bottom end 4.8 liter. And we're also going to be doing some fun math after that, which I know fun math doesn't sound like a possibility. I promise you're not back in school right now. This is horsepower math, so it's a little bit more fun. Yeah, we're going to figure all that out. So anyways, before I show you guys that, I will show you it is a little bit lighter than it was on the past right now, because and apparently it was making enough power to break the wing off. As you can see here, I have this just sat upside down here. It did actually break off. It didn't break off on the pass, luckily. It just happened to break off after I got the car loaded up and I drove a little ways down the road. I opened the trailer up to check on the straps, and the wing was sitting there hanging down. So that sucks, but it just looks like these rivets just pulled out of the trunk. So we'll have to figure out a better way to mount that so that doesn't happen. And also, I think the main issue there was not even the rivets, it was the bottom of the trunk where the struts go to. If you watch closely whenever I launch, you can see the wing bounce quite a bit, and that's because these right here, there's no good mount down there at the bottom of the trunk. So we need to add something there in order to stiffen that up some so we don't have the wing bouncing around so much. But anyways, I'll quit boring you guys with that, and we'll get right into what this thing weighed. We're gonna go into my office real quick and hop on the computer so we can do some of this math and show you guys some cool stuff that you can do with all this. All right, who's ready for some fun ricer math? So anyways, before we get to that, we'll give you the weight of the car. So I have had this car on scales before I actually took it to the track. I actually scaled it so I could get a weight to give to a company for some parts that I ordered, which I'll be showing you guys in another video that I'm very excited about. But anyways, we put it on some corner scales thanks to my buddy Jordan Stroud. He has a channel as well, Gunslinger Garage. He has some scales that he let me use. He used to help a lot with the Fox body whenever we were doing a lot of no prep and grudge racing around here. Got me into a lot of races, which also reminds me, I originally planned to not share the weight, which is why I didn't film anything whenever I did go over there and weigh the car. However, I do have pictures of the scale weights, of course. The original plan was to not share the weight because after the 4.8 is gone, I plan to do some no time racing and possibly getting into some grudge racing type stuff. And a lot of times people won't share weights whenever they're doing that, just because you know, it's just hiding as much as you can. But the more I think about it, I'm probably not going to be doing a whole lot of grudge racing, and if I do lose some grudge races because of the weight, it's whatever. But if I'm doing, you know, no time racing, no prep type stuff, it doesn't really matter what the car weighs. They're gonna have to race me anyways, and if I'm faster, I'm faster. If I'm not, I'm not. So I'm not too worried about it. I'm gonna go ahead and release the weight. But here is the picture of the scale whenever we put it on the corner scales, and this is with me in it with I believe all my gear as well. There may have been a few things missing, and I also believe I added a few small things, but it's more than likely 5 to 10 pounds off of where it ended up. However, there's also another 20 pounds or so added because I added the radiator and the amount of water that it took to fill the system the rest of the way up after this. And I did weigh the radiator and the amount of water that it took, and it was about 20 pounds. So on the record run, we should have been right around 2,750 pounds with me in the car. So not super light. I'm sure some people were assuming lighter, some probably heavier. I figured if I didn't tell the weight, it's probably going to be assumed that it's lighter and that it's super light, and that's why I'm not sharing it. But that's definitely not the case. As you can see, So anyways, let's take that weight and figure out how much horsepower this little 4.8 was making on that record run. So the way that we're going to do that is we're going to open up the Wallace 1/8 mile horsepower calculator. I will link that in the description. It's a pretty fun little thing to play with. Especially I like to use it if somebody claims a horsepower number or a dyno number. I like to see just how well it compares to what their mile per hour is showing. So what this calculator does is it roughly calculates the average horsepower that you need, that is crank horsepower, over the run in order to run the mile per hour that you did at the weight that you're at. So we're going to put in my weight in mile per hour, which my mile per hour was 146.01. we got to make sure we get that 0.01 in there for that extra half a horsepower. And then the car, of course, was 2,750 pounds, so we'll type that in there, and that gives us 1,330 horsepower. So that is 1,330 horsepower at the crank. That is not bad for a motor that made 265 horsepower from the crank from the factory. So anyways, we're going to also put in the data from my last record run where I went a 495 at 140. I believe it was 140.8. We're going to put that in there. And of course the car weighed 2,945 pounds, so I just had to look at the slip that I have sitting next to me from that pass. I actually put the car on the scales right after that. So on my last record run with the Fox body where I went the 495 at 140, we were making 1,277 horsepower. So as you can see, we are making a decent amount more power even though the car is lighter. So not all of the gains were from the lighter chassis and losing the weight from the methanol as well with the no intercooler. We are making more power than before. We can also take that horsepower number and get a rough idea of how much power this engine would make naturally aspirated. And the way we're going to do that is by taking the boost number and doing a little bit of math with that. We're actually going to convert it over to bar. And if you guys don't know, I'm assuming most people would know map sensors are rated that way, like a 3-bar map sensor, for example. And if you don't know, 1 bar of that 3-bar map sensor is actually going to be for vacuum. So it's going to read all the way from a complete vacuum to roughly barometric pressure at sea level, which is about 1 bar. So you don't actually get 3 bars of boost from a 3-bar map sensor. You can run up to 2 bar of boost, which is roughly 30 pounds of boost. It's actually just under that. So anyways, we're going to convert my boost number over to bar, and then we're going to add that 1 bar that we are losing to vacuum, and then we're going to use that to figure out how much it was making naturally aspirated. So I was roughly at 32 psi, which is 2.2 bar. And so we'll add the 1 bar from the vacuum, of course, and then we'll divide the 1,330 horsepower by that 3.3. So there we go, 1,330 horsepower divided by 3.2 bar. That is 415 horsepower naturally aspirated. So this isn't a perfect science or anything. I like to call it ricer math because it's like I said, it's not perfect, but it is still a fun thing to look at. And some of the things that will throw this off if you do this with your combo is, for example, if you don't have a very efficient turbo setup, you're not going to gain your naturally aspirated horsepower with every 1 bar of boost. Like if you have a turbo where it takes 30 pounds of back pressure to make 1 bar, you know, or 2 bar back pressure to make 1 bar of boost, then more than likely you're losing a lot of efficiency there, and you're not going to be gaining your NA horsepower with every 1 bar of boost. I feel like my setup may possibly be on the other end of that. As I turn it up more, I'm getting more into the efficiency range of the turbo, and it's possibly going to gain more than it makes naturally aspirated with every 1 bar of boost. Another factor that kind of throws that off is the fact that I'm not being super aggressive with the tune-up on timing or air-fuel ratio, and I could more than likely get a large amount of horsepower. I would assume another 100 horsepower on the same amount of boost if I were to be much more aggressive with timing and leaning it out. But it's not really what I want to do with this stock bottom end. I'd rather use some boost and keep the tune-up conservative instead of really leaning on it. So anyways, there you go. Some pretty cool information, and the weight of the car. So 2,750 pounds, making over 1,300 horsepower on only 32 pounds of boost. And also another factor, on the last record run with the Fox body with my old combination, that was at 38, 39 pounds of boost roughly average through the run, whereas we were at 32 on this one. So that shows you that we're making around 50 or over 50 horsepower more on like 6 to 7 pounds less boost with this new combination. So that's really cool, and I think a lot of that goes to the new heads, Wilks Performance ported heads with some bigger valves now instead of the stock 706s that I had before. The Foolproof Performance cam, that was quite a bit larger than the old one. The Forced Inductions turbo, I feel like, is a massive part of it. That Forced Inductions GTR 88 just makes crazy power with very low back pressure. I actually have like 27, 28 pounds of back pressure on 32 pounds of boost, so that thing is not even trying. And also another big factor that helps with our average horsepower is the converter from Hughes Performance, keeping us right around that peak horsepower RPM. That makes it, of course, it's going to bring our average up a lot over the run, and that's one of the reasons why a good converter is so important. I believe, based off the data, I'm assuming that the engine makes its peak horsepower right around 8,000 RPM. So with us shifting, 300-400 RPM above that and then dropping about 300 RPM below that, we're staying at a really good average horsepower throughout the run, so that helps a lot. So anyways, hopefully you guys enjoyed the video. Maybe you learned something. Leave a comment, let me know what you think, and make sure you guys like, share, and subscribe, and we'll see you guys in the next one, where we're getting the car ready for some more track days and seeing if we can set this record even faster. So thank you guys for joining. We'll see you guys in the next one.